Proceed straight.
Well, we're 0 for 6. Last chance is the Elmhurst Country Club. Other side of the lake on the southeast side.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. I thought this would work. Threw everything I had at that guy, nothing.
That's how it goes sometimes, you know? You lose everything, and everything falls apart, and eventually you die and no one remembers you.
That is a very good point, Dwight.
Make a right turn.
Wait, no. It means bear right.
No,
Up there.
It said right. It said take a right.
No, look. It means go up to the right, bear right, over the bridge, and hook up with 307.
Make a right
Maybe it's
turn.
a shortcut, Dwight. It said go to the right.
It can't mean that. There's a lake there.
I think
it knows where it is going.
This is
the
lake.
machine knows.
This is the lake.
Stop yelling at me.
No, it's
Stop
up
yelling.
there. There's no road
here. Remain calm. I have trained for this. Okay. Exit the window. Here we go.
Make a U-turn, if possible.
Look out for Legion! Michael! Are you okay? Swim for it! I got you! Michael! Let go! Let go of Michael! Come on! I got you! Michael, come on! Go on!
You sure you're okay?
Fine.
Good. That is what's most important.
Did you get the rental insurance? Because that is pretty important, too, at a time like this.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for watching West, or if you're listening to us throughout the week via podcast or online, we're so glad that you have chosen to take a few minutes out of the busyness of life to join in together and us be together in worship. So my name is Andrea Smith. I have the privilege of being the pastor here, and that clip from The Office that we just showed is hilarious. It is so typical sometimes of us in our lives, and that we just keep going. We're trying to follow this direction. We're trying to drop our pen. We're trying to make sure that we are going to a certain place in life, and then we start listening to different things, or literally listening to a GPS system, and it starts telling us to do one thing, to go one direction, and we're like, I just don't know if that's right. And then we follow it, and we see that sometimes we just end up on a dead end or end up in the middle of a lake. And so we are talking about dropping our pen, what that looks like in a new year as we kick off 2023. Where we should drop our pen, how we should drop it. And today we're going to wrap up this series, and we're going to talk about recalibrating. And like if you look on your phone and you look on that image where you drop a pen, like in the right hand side of that, it says more. And if you click on that, it shows you some options. And I really want us to think about that today for a few minutes, that there is more. There's more to this understanding of religion. There's more to the understanding of faith. And I really want us to think about that and look at that from perhaps a new perspective. And so I'm so glad that you are joining in. If you are worshiping with us live, we would love for you to type your name in the chat room. Let Lexi, our growth co-pastor, know that you are with us. I want to announce, one of our core values at West is to have fun. So we try to do fun things with worship, both in person at Lake Norman High School and with our online campus with you. And so periodically we'll have games and we'll give away prizes. And right now in this series, we are giving away Starbucks gift cards. And so I realized this week that our campus, our online reach is so broad, like our Uganda campus worships with us online. And so I don't think they want a Starbucks gift card. I've been there several times. I've not seen a Starbucks yet. That's not to say that one won't show up there soon. But one of our winners last week of the competition of the flags of countries, we guessed what the flags were. One of our winners is from Uganda. So Prosper, congratulations. And so I'm going to WhatsApp you the money or send Wave you the money that would have gone towards your Starbucks gift card. So congrats to Prosper. He got 4 of the flags right. And then Alec Goodman here from our West Campus Online. He and Scarlett and their son worship with us online every week. And so, Alec, you are the winner of a Starbucks gift card. So we'll get that to you in the mail this week. Congratulations. And I hope you enjoy your Starbucks. Today would be a perfect day for it here. It's nasty and rainy and cold, but hopefully you'll enjoy your Starbucks. Now, you all have an opportunity, if you're watching with us live, to win your own Starbucks gift card this week. So it's really important that you put your names in the chat room for Lexi, because that's how you end up being entered in the drawing. You have to take some guesses at today's challenge or quiz. Today, in the spirit of talking about travel and relocating and dropping our pin, we are going to see how many different languages we recognize. So we're going to get to that in just a minute, but we want you to get ready for that, and we want you to see if you guess them correctly. We're going to play them through 2 times, and we want you to just jot down on a piece of paper on your cell phone or whatever, jot down what you think the answer is. Then we're going to come back through after we finish the 7. We're going to give you the answers, and then I want you to type in the chat room how many you got right. Lexi will text me. She's over at the high school getting ready for worship there, and so she monitors the chat over there. She'll text me, let me know how many you guys got right, and then we'll dive into the message. So there will be a song in the middle after the game before the message, so we can see who all's participating and all that. So I hope you're ready. Get your ears ready, your AirPods or whatever, and let's dive in and see how many languages you know what they are. They're all saying the same sentence. Ready? Let's go.
Hola, mi nombre es Andrea. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy. Hola, mi nombre es Andrea. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Andrea. Je vous remercie d'être venu aujourd'hui. Bonjour, je m'appelle Andrea. Je vous remercie d'être venu aujourd'hui.
Ahoj, jmenuji se Andrea. Děkujeme, že jste se k nám dnes připojili. Ahoj, jmenuji se Andrea. Děkujeme, že jste se k nám dnes připojili.
Ciao, mi chiamo Andrea. Grazie per essere stato con noi oggi. Ciao, mi chiamo Andrea. Grazie per essere stato con noi oggi.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Андреа. Спасибо, что присоединились к нам сегодня. Здравствуйте, меня зовут Андреа. Спасибо, что присоединились к нам сегодня.
你好，我叫安德里亚，感谢您今天加入我们。你好，我叫安德里亚，感谢您今天加入我们。
こんにちは、私の名前はアンドレアです。本日はご参加ありがとうございました。こんにちは、私の名前はアンドレアです。本日はご参加ありがとうございました。
All right, thanks for participating. And we are going to go back now and see the answers. And after you figure out how many you got right, we want you to text Lexi in the chat room. Ready? The first one.
Hola, mi nombre es Andrea. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy.
So that one is Spanish.
Ahoj, jmenuji se Andrea. Děkujeme, že jste se k nám
Bonjour, je m'appelle Andrea. Je vous remercie d'être venu aujourd'hui.
Ahoj, jmenuji se Andrea. Děkujeme, že jste se k nám dnes připojili.
Ciao, mi chiamo Andrea. Grazie per essere stato con noi oggi.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Андреа. Спасибо, что присоединились к нам сегодня.
你好，我叫安德里亚，感谢您今天加入我们。
こんにちは、私の名前はアンドレアです。本日はご参加ありがとうございました。
All right, so if you were listening and not watching and not able to see the screen, we're going to go back through those one more time, and I'm going to say the answers because I realize going through them that some of you may just be listening and not looking. And so we're going to go through, and I'm just going to tell you what they are. You don't even have to listen. We're just going to scroll through them really quickly. The first one was Spanish. The second one was French. The third was Czech. The fourth, Italian. The fifth, Russian. The sixth, Chinese. And the seventh was Japanese. At one point, when I thought I heard yeehaw, and so that would have been my indigenous language growing up in Roxborough and then Sawmills. I was actually pretty familiar with the term yeehaw, and then I realized, okay, this is not Sawmillese. It is actually a different language. So add up how many you got right, and then type that in the chat room. Lexi's gonna send me that, and we're gonna put all your names, all of you who participate in the chat room. You don't have to get the most number to win. We're going to put all your names in the hat and draw out this week and announce the winner next week. So as you listen to the song, type your names and how many you got right in the chat room. Thanks.
God, I'm on my knees again. God, I'm begging, please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Walking down these desert roads, water for my thirsty soul. I need you. Oh, I need you. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears, like holy water on my skin. Dead men walking slave to sin. I wanna know about being born again. I need you. Oh God, I need you. So take me to the riverside. Take me under, baptize. I need you. Oh God, I need you. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears, like holy water on my skin. Oh, my skin. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me want
What's that?
Roadmate 700. I call her Lola.
Make a right in 100 feet.
Thank you, Lola. She's accurate to within 10 feet.
Go straight.
No, Lola says take a right.
Well, you'll hit mall traffic. Just go straight. 50 feet.
Yeah, but she said take a right.
Well, I'm telling you to go straight. 20 feet. Choose.
Baby, please.
Turn right. Choose. Dad! Turn
Whoa!
My bad.
You are 30 hours and 59 minutes from your destination.
So I have some concerns about my hearing loss, perhaps. I'm really impressed. Like, you guys got a lot right in that. And I would not have, or I didn't actually. I think I knew two. And the rest, I was totally unaware of what they were. So way to go. We'll put your names in a hat and draw, and we'll announce next Sunday morning live who won the Starbucks gift cards. And so thanks for participating. And it's so cool to see that you're worshiping from all over. Before we dive into today's message, I do have a question for you. So next week, we are going to start a new series. Lexi and Growth Co. did this series about a year ago, and it's called Would You Date You? And I just think that's a phenomenal concept. So in February, in the month of love and all that kind of stuff, we're going to talk about, would we date ourselves? And so I've got a question for you this morning. You can help craft some of the things that we do in the series. We've got the theological stuff down that I want us to talk about. We're going to look at who and how people loved and how Jesus loved and what they did, what got in the way of loving and being loved. We're going to talk about Mary and Martha and see where we identify. We're going to talk about introspection and self-introspection and see if we're willing to do that work. But we're going to make it fun as well. So we're going to have our own little version of the dating game. Now, whether you're in a relationship or not, I want you to answer this question, and I would love for you to type your answers in the chat room, or I'm going to give you my number, my West number, and I would love for you to text me your questions, because to kick off the series, we're going to have our own version of the dating game, and I'm going to see if I would be willing to date myself. I think the answer might be a hard no, because I've been thinking about it over the past couple of weeks as we've been thinking about this series, but I want the questions to be yours. So will you, and part of this is selfish, like we changed our numbers and got rid of our business account, and so I have a new West phone number. I've had the same preacher number for the past like almost 20 years, so I want you to have my new number. It is 704-240-0966. Lexi will put this in the chat room for you as well. 704-240-0966. 704-240-0966. This is the new way you can get in touch with me with Wes. Now, if you could go on the dating game and you had the opportunity to have some potential people on the other side of the screen that you could be in a relationship with, what questions would you want to ask to see if they would be your best partner? What questions would you want to ask to see if they would be your best partner? In looking at your names in the chat room, I know that we've got some young 20-year-olds in the chat room, and then we've got some people my age that have been in multiple relationships from the time we were dating in middle school and high school and college, and then now in our adulting and in our seasoned adulting. So you bring a wisdom to this that perhaps others may not have yet, and so let's share that wisdom with one another. What questions would you ask if you were the suitor on the dating game and you were going to pick who you could date? What questions would you ask? Either put them in the chat room or text me on my West phone and let me know. And then you're going to see some of those questions next week as we kick off our series, Would You Date You? I hope that you'll join in. So today we're going to talk about recalibrating. It's one of the biggest sources of contention when Tom and I are traveling together and I am responsible for directions. And what happens is we'll be going wherever we're going, and then like I will inevitably miss a turn or miss telling him something, and then so GPS starts recalibrating. And she'll say that. She'll say recalibrating. And the problem with that is, like, Tom, who's driving, needs to know where we're going and needs to know then. I mean, it's not like we're the only people on the road. And because I have not looked at the big picture, I've not looked at the greater map, I've only relied on that GPS, I really have no idea where we are going. We had Charlotte FC season tickets last year, and we were going to one of the games, and they block off roads in downtown to try to get you to the stadium in the most efficient way possible. And it was bad because I had no idea which road we were supposed to turn on, and the GPS just kept saying recalibrating. And we ended up like missing the opening kickoff because we ended up going around it in circles for a really long time. That's what happens in our lives if we don't have a clear path on where we're going. It's what has happened in religion too. Like, religion has ended up being this thing that just sends us going around in circles. So what I want us to look at today, and what I want us to think about perhaps in a new manner, is how did we get to this place in religion where we've sort of missed the point? I want us to understand God in a new way, in a bigger way. I would like for us to walk away from today and understand God's wholeness, God's generosity, God's availability, and God's universal efficiency. And so I want us to understand that God is so much bigger, and I say that a lot, but I want us to really dig into that this morning. And what does that mean? God's wholeness, God's generosity, God's availability, and God's universal efficiency. Wholeness, generosity, availability, and universal efficiency. God's so big and so much bigger than religion has made God. And because of that, we live in a day and an age where we can have any information at the click of our phones. And so people are turning away from religion left and right because it seems to not be bringing anything of value. But if we would step away from looking at it as such a pigeonhole kind of thing and look at it in the broader concept that Jesus introduced. So this is not something that we've come up with at West or I've come up with in my theological training. This is really what Jesus was talking about. And so I want us to look at that and get a better understanding of that. So I want to talk to you for just a second about Jesus. And remember, so he came and he was with us, or with humanity. He was doing life with them. Remember, he was not a part of Christianity. In fact, nowhere in the teachings of Jesus can we find him saying, oh, we should all be Christians. That's not a thing that came with Jesus. In fact, Jesus came and he said, I'm going to show you the way. And then later on in his ministry with them, after they said, okay, I'm in, and he's like, follow me, and he calls them to action. He didn't say, all you need to do is just believe. He's like, I want you to follow me. And so they did, and then they followed him in life and in ministry. Later on in that, he's like, look, I am the way. And when he says I am, he refers to a quote back in the Hebrew scriptures. And, Moses asked God who God is when God reveals God's self to Moses, and God responds by saying, I am that I am. So anytime we see Jesus use the phrase I am, we can understand that he's referencing a bigger understanding of God. It's not like he's giving some kind of personal decree. He is relying on that phrase, those words, to tie him into the greater divine, the greater presence of God. And he's not the only one that does that in and throughout our scriptures. I mean, in the Hebrew scriptures, people tie into the nature of God. And then since then, different people, the early Christian mystics, because how we got Christianity is after the time of Jesus. Like Christianity, the followers of the movement and of the way, they wanted to put a name behind it, and it became a government religion. It became the state religion thanks to Constantine, and they came up with this word Christians because Jesus, and we're going to talk about this in just a few minutes, but Jesus was referred to as Jesus Christ. And so they came up with this thing called Christianity. And then in Christianity, like over the years, over the thousands of years that it has existed, humanity has put a lot more understanding around that. And every time you have that, you have different interpretations, you have different ways of being. I mean, we started out with the Orthodox Church, and thousands of years ago, and then it broke into two with the Western Orthodox and the Eastern Orthodox religions, and we are Western, and the Eastern Orthodox religions, like, they still exist and they still function, and we look at Christianity differently. But what I want us to understand is that there are some universal principles that are true in all religions. And I'm not preaching today that I want us to, just embrace and worship all religions. What I want us to do is I want us to walk away with today with respect and understanding. And I personally believe that if we look at the person of Jesus, the person Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ, then we can understand and we can get this amazing, beautiful glimpse of God, the nature of divine reality, divine presence. And then, like, if we become a part of that, like, our lives are changed. And the goal of religion, the goal of church, is for there to be transformation. Every time you join into a podcast or a live worship service, or anytime we do something together in person, it is our hope that you leave that experience changed, a little bit better, having a little better grasp on life and reality and how we deal with difficult things and difficult times. Who are we? Where are we called to go? Like, that's the whole goal of this. It's not for you just to come be passive listeners and then be like, oh, I checked church off my box. That is not relevant or needed by any of us. Everybody's got tons of things going on in their life. You don't need one more thing. What if we get back to religion and Christianity being transformational? That's what needs to happen. And so that's the goal of this message. And I want us to start by looking at, like, the historical part and getting it to where it is today. So there are three themes in all religions. I don't care what the religion is, there are three themes, and let's look at those. Number one is the divine reality is permanent and within the world excuse me, of all things. So there is a divine reality. And notice, if you're looking on the screen beside me, those words are capitalized. Divine reality is another way, another phrase of saying God. So there is a divine reality that is permanent and within the world of things. And then number two, there is a human capacity, and pay really close attention to these words: capacity, similarity, and longing. There's a human capacity, similarity, and longing for this divine reality. A human capacity, meaning that we all have this way and space within us that wants to be a part of something bigger than we are. There is a longing for it, whether we recognize that longing or not. Sometimes we try to fill that longing with something that is not tied to the divine reality, and that's when we end up, spiraling downward and getting out of control and being in this ultimate perpetual circle of recalibrating. Like we have this longing and we try to fill this inner longing for the divine presence, the divine love with other things, with stuff, with money, with relationships, with substances. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's just this innate longing that is born into all humanity for something that is attached to love. And we say love because we believe that's what the divine presence and the divine reality is. And so there's this capacity and similarity. It exists in all religions. We have this longing and this likeness and this capacity for this divine reality. And then third, the ultimate goal of existence is union with this divine reality. So that's why we're here. That's what I'm hoping that week in and week out, your participation in West will help you have, is this union with God, this union with love. We understand it and we study it and we embrace it through the person Jesus of Nazareth. We believe that Jesus revealed to us God's very nature, and for us, Jesus has the Savior presence in our lives. He is our Messiah. But I want us to also recognize that in all religions, there is this sameness and this similarity and this divine presence, this divine union that is running in and through all religions. And it's there for all people to tap into, to participate in, so that our lives are changed. So we call Jesus, Jesus. We call him Jesus Christ. We refer to him as Jesus of Nazareth. And when I'm talking about the person of Jesus, that's what I try to say, because we have ended up making Jesus Christ. Christ is his last name. So I want us to think about that for just a second. Jesus, the term Christ, is not his last name. It's not like Andrea Smith or Lexi Hernandez. It is Jesus, and he was the Christ. It was not just some kind of brand that was given to him. It's very different. So I want you to meditate on those words really fast. Just look at the term Jesus Christ. And I want us to get it in our heads that Jesus is the person and Christ is what he was. And it's so much bigger than the pigeonhole that we've put Jesus in. And that's exactly what we've done. Like, we made Jesus the Christ be only for a finite group of people that lived in a finite way and adhered to a certain number of rules and laws, and they became exclusive. And if you don't do this and this and this, then you're not a Christian. And that's just not what he intended. In fact, I want us to understand what the word Christ is. And a lot of today's message is taken from Richard Rohr, who is one of the most amazing theologians in our world today. And he has written a book called A Spring Within. I'm part of a small group right now that is actually diving through this book. It is a daily devotional, A Spring Within Us. I would invite you to grab it on Kindle or Audible. You can listen to it every day. It's so powerful. And so much of the learnings that I'm bringing to you today are from that. So I don't want you to think like I came up with all this. Richard Rohr is so brilliant and penned these ideas for us. But he defines Christ as this divine presence that is recognized and encountered in the material and the physical universe. Christ means, and Christ is, it's the divine presence that's recognized and encountered in the material and physical universe. So, how do we know if we've met the Christ? Well, that's the ultimate goal for us, right? Is to meet and encounter Jesus, for it to bring us that same connection and that same hope and that same love that the early followers of Jesus had when they were with him. Like, we believe that that presence and that spirit, that energy, that love lives on. So how do we encounter that? Well, the beauty is that we can encounter it in and through all people, everywhere, in all walks of life and existence. It's not just limited to people, it's in all living things. The risen Christ is everywhere. Now, the goal for us, though, is to experience the risen Christ, not just Jesus of Nazareth, because something happened, right? Like, after he lived his life and there he showed us how to be ultimately at one with the divine presence and the divine reality, and it comes through this reckoning. And we talked a little about it last week, and we tied it back to the wells that were in the ancient Hebrew, that are referred to in the ancient Hebrew text, but were in the area of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all that, that there's like this pivotal point in our lives where we face something that is so horrific or so just gut-wrenching and tragic that it calls us to this deep, deep level of acknowledgement that we can't just keep doing it the way we've always done it, and that there has to be something more. It could be a tragedy that we've lived through, the loss of a loved one, just our world's turning upside down for any variety of reasons. But that's sort of where we move from looking at things in a duality, total duality, and like right or wrong, black and white, and we move into seeing things in a bigger way. That's what happened with the death of Jesus. And we have in the scriptures this beautiful picture of what that death looked like, because in dying, Jesus shows us how to live. It's embodied in the phrases that we hear that he uttered from the cross. And he gives us this picture of how we can tap into this divine presence and this divine reality. So on your screens, you see this picture of Simone Weil. And she was a French philosopher. She died in the mid-1940s. And she was born Jewish, and yet she fell in love with Jesus. And she wrestled with that all of her life. And she struggled. She's like, I can't find in any of his writings or his teachings, like, where he says to turn away from this and only do this. Like, turn away from the Jewish culture and the Jewish traditions and only follow this way. Now, Jesus does say, look, don't get so hung up on the 600 and plus laws that you quit loving people. But it's really important to note that, like, Jesus lived in the time where other world religions existed as well. Judaism was not the only religion during the time of Jesus. In fact, some people say, and we have no idea of knowing, but some scholars say, many scholars say, that from the time that Jesus was 12 and they found him in the temple teaching, his mom and dad, his earthly mom and dad, Mary and Joseph, they found him in the temple teaching from the time that he went public in ministry, that he perhaps would have studied those world religions. We have no idea. But what we do know is if you read every single word in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, and Romans, and all the other books, all the way to Revelation, if you read all the words that are recorded to us of Jesus, you never see Jesus dog or put down another religion. He never says anything ugly or hateful or degrading about the other religions. The only time that Jesus gets really pointed with his language and ends up being pretty ballsy and like, I don't like this, is to the religious leaders when they hurt people in the name of religion. That ticked him off. He called them whitewashed tombs. He called them hypocrites. He referred to them as fools. I mean, he was not this just meek little guy that walked around. I mean, he would call them out on their crap. But the people that he called out were the religious leaders, not all the other people that were trying to do what I shared with you at the beginning of this message, like tap into that universal divine reality and presence. If there's one takeaway from today's message, it would be that we as Christians would stop dogging all the other religions and stop trying to put everybody else down. And we just focus on ourselves and maybe how we could be more like Jesus. That's what's going to bring about not just a change in the world, but a change in us. So mind your own business, mind our own business. Did your parents ever teach you that? Like I'd come home and like gossip about something that happened in school and my stepmom would say, you know what, just mind your own business. The world would be a better place if we did that. And what if in minding our own business, we took care of our business and our business became about love? When we look at the name Christ, we will see that Christ is actually the naming of how reality works. When we talk about Jesus Christ, when we use that term, it shows us to look at Jesus and the way that Jesus lived and understand it, that that's how reality really is. It's this love. It's this dual love. Love that we give and love that we receive and learning to love ourselves. We've made Christ a term of division instead of a term of deep unity. And that is the exact opposite of what it was supposed to be. So I've shared with you before, it's a little bit controversial, but you know, we've always lived on the edge of who we are as a church. So to have a pastor that's able and willing to talk about these things is just indicative of who we are. But I shared with you about 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to participate in a study of religious professionals with Johns Hopkins. And Johns Hopkins, NYU, and the University of California at Berkeley, there are lots of places that are doing this study because the FDA is ready to approve a new drug. And the drug is called psilocybin, and the drug is used to treat stage 4 cancer patients, which is honestly what motivated me to be a part of the study, because in my 25 years of ministry, I've sat by bed after bed of individuals that are moving from this realm to the realm eternal. And sometimes it's beautiful and peaceful, and sometimes it's riddled with fear and regret. And if there is something that can be done in the medical field to help people let go of that fear and that anxiety, then I'm all in. So that's actually what pushed me to be a part of it once I figured out what it was. It took me a minute because I grew up apparently living under a rock. So I had no idea what mushrooms or anything like that. I never did recreational, well, still don't do recreational drugs or anything like that. So when I was first reading about this study, I was like, oh, wow. Like it used the words LSD in conjunction with psilocybin. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's wrong. That's a sin. And so, but the more I studied and learned, it was they're using a chemical to try to bring about this change and this difference. And that chemical is called psilocybin, and they've been studying it for years. And the FDA is on the brink. And in fact, in some places, it is already being used to treat anxiety, eating disorders, alcoholism, clinical depression, helping people overcome addictions of all kinds, stage 4 terminal cancer patients, people with PTSD. I mean, I'm such an advocate for this because what happened in my journey, or my trip, whatever you want to call it, in a very controlled, very medical setting with Johns Hopkins doctors right next door, but psychiatrists from Johns Hopkins and guides, because it's also a very spiritual experience. That's why they did the study with religious professionals. They were doing it with people, trying to treat them for all these things, and all these folks were coming out of it being like, oh my gosh, there's something bigger than I am, and I'm tapped into this. And like, people would come out of this, and what it does is it just helps you get to this deep level of consciousness that the early Christian mystics, they did it all the time on their own, because they didn't have cell phones and computers and streaming platforms and social media and all this stuff to distract them. Their connection with the divine presence and the divine reality was so easy, so much easier for us. They got this all the time. But what the researchers found is that people who didn't believe in any of that were coming out of this experience not only able to address their addictions and their fears and their anxieties, but they were coming out of it saying, I think there's more to this than I knew. And I can say, like, that's such a real thing. And it was what my experience was. Like, in this process of being medicated, like, you just feel this energy and this love, and it's so beautiful. And you get it. You get that there's this divine presence. We call it God, love, energy, and it's all connected. And it's so beautiful. It changes us. And that's what the researchers have found and have shown. And they're going to be releasing the study this year, and I can't wait to be able to share it with you. It just gives credence, honestly, in a scientific way to what you and I have been talking about for a long time. That there's this love and this power, and it holds it all together. It holds us together. Even when we're in the worst places, there's more. The interesting thing is, like, when I came out of my journey, it's like a 6-hour experience or trip or whatever you want to call it. As I was debriefing, you have to write papers and all this kind of stuff. It was a clinical study. So I came up with these words called unitive consciousness. Now, I didn't even know what that meant then, but I remember saying that to Roland, the leader of the study, the lead researcher at Hopkins. I'm like, I think there's this thing called unitive consciousness. I said, but I don't even know if that's a word. Is that a word? And I saw all the researchers look at one another and smile. I mean, they're not allowed to shape our experience in any way, so they didn't answer me. But a few weeks ago, when I was reading this book from Rohr in my small group, it gives this definition of unitive consciousness. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's in the book. And check it out. Unitive consciousness is that connection with the divine presence and reality. And it overcomes the divisions and the dichotomies of the world. And what happens in this unitive consciousness is we all see ourselves as one. And we see Jesus the Christ in all things everywhere. Do we do that? Do you see Jesus in everyone and everything everywhere? Do we honor Jesus in everyone and everywhere, or do we want them to become like us? You know, trying to get people to conform to what we want them to be, that's not respecting them for who they are, or where they come from, or their journey. Julian of Norwich is another famous early Christian mystic. And she uses the phrase, I am, like I shared with you earlier. And I want you to read this quote with me from her. By myself, I am nothing at all. But in general, I am the wanting of love. For it is in this wanting that the life of all people exists. So God is the one-ing that we're all tapped into. By ourselves, we are nothing. But with God, with the divine presence, with the divine reality, we are tapped into that wanting, and we are everything. So what if we become a people of unity and not uniformity? We become unified in this wanting and in this love, and it oozes out of who we are in all ways. How would that change the world? How would it change us? And what if we become okay with recognizing that, you know what, there are differences. And some people need a very different religious experience than what I need. We could really get down in the weeds with all this, but we're not going to. But like talking about liturgies and you know, like when you say things in a church service, like back and forth, and you read them, or you say a creed or something like that. There's so many different ways that it can be done. And the reason that West exists in the way that we are, and we're a little weird and different, is that, you know what, again, there's so many churches around us within a 3-mile radius that do all that and do it really, really well. The world did not need another church that did liturgies really well. What the world needed was a place where people that are done with religion and done with exclusion could find a safe space to ask questions and to wrestle with one's journey and one's faith. And that's who we are and why we're here. And so what if we respect one another's differences? And we maintain that they are present, and yet we also overcome them at the soul level. So we know that despite our different ways of worshiping or honoring God, at the core, we're all in that longing for that divine presence and reality that goes in and through all things. So this past week, I had the privilege of visiting Betty Pettit. She's one of our West members, and she is homebound now pretty much completely. She's in the final stages of Alzheimer's. She is the mom of one of our staff, Josh Pettit, and frankly, they're like famous now. The National Alzheimer's Association, because Josh is TikTok savvy. He made a video, it went viral, and now he's been interviewed by all these news stations and just really bringing awareness to Alzheimer's. Now, that's not why I went to see Betty. I went to see Betty really to support Bob, her husband of 60 plus years, and support Josh and just be there for them as their pastor, as now their life looks very different than what it did even just a few months ago. Now, because Josh and Bob and Betty are TikTok famous, people all over the world, and we're going to share this with you in a message during Lent in a few months. I want to just show you. I mean, I ended up crying while I was there because I was just struck with the beauty of humanity. So Betty, I don't do a lot of TikTok and social media, so I don't know all the videos that Josh has posted, but I think Betty likes stuffed animals. And so she had bears and dogs and cats and teddy bears from all over the world, from Australia, from Ireland, from Norway. People from all over the world are researching where they live, their address, and sending them things. The thing that touched me the most is that they had a blanket, and the blanket had pictures all over it of Bob and Betty and Josh and their friends. Somebody got on social media that they've never met and pulled the pictures off of Josh's social media, made them the blanket, and sent it to them. They don't know who the person is, had no idea. Another kindergarten teacher in upstate New York that they don't know had her class make them Christmas ornaments. She sent the Christmas ornaments to the Pettits, and then Josh, because he's Josh, he sent her back a gift. And I think it was like an Amazon gift card. Instead of using that for herself, she bought more materials for her classroom. Now, I tell you all that to say that is wanting. That's looking like Christ. Whether you go by the term Christian or not, that's the understanding and the meaning of Christianity. Because that's the meaning of love. That you put yourself behind someone else and behind showing kindness and generosity and love. That is what it's all about. And we've made it really complicated. So what if we get recalibrating? What if we give it new meaning? And we recalibrate away from the meaning of all the religious stuff. And we just be a people of divine presence and reality and love. That's what we're called to do. Let us pray. Gracious God, thank you for showing us what that love really looks like. Because that's you. It's who you are. And you reveal yourself to us through the person Jesus of Nazareth, who becomes for us the Christ. That awareness, that presence of divine reality and love in all things. God, it'd be great if in this world we didn't need medical assistance to connect to that deepest, deepest presence of the divine. In fact, we don't need it if we just be more in tune with you. Will you help us get all the other stuff out of the way so that we can find you and connect with you so that we are transformed and so we can go and recalibrate the way people see you and see faith in this world? We give you thanks and praise. In Christ's name, amen. Thanks for joining us. Send me your dating questions. Like, what would you ask a potential suitor before you got in a relationship with them? And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks.
Every time I try to make it on my own, every time I try to stand, start to fall. All those lonely roads that I have traveled on, there was Jesus. When the life I built came crashing to the ground, when the friends I had were nowhere to be found, I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now. There was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment of where I've been and where Jesus. For this man who needs amazing kind of grace, forgiveness at a price I couldn't pay. I'm not perfect, so I thank God every day. There was Jesus.
There was Jesus.
In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment of where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it, I couldn't see it. There was Jesus on the mountains, in the valleys.
There was Jesus.
In the shadows of the alleys.
There was Jesus.
In the fire, in the flood.